Hello, hello, hello. We have a great question, which is, why is motivation so difficult? Now, in order to understand this, you have to understand how motivation functions. So, the people that are least motivated are actually the people that have the most. In other words, I have a friend, he's a professor, and American professors basically came to his college in, I think it was Port Elizabeth, that's in South Africa, and they were all compassionate to poor black kids. So finally he said to them, for people to succeed, they have to be motivated. In other words, and this is very interesting because this is what happens in societies, and this is what's happening right now, and that is that, excuse me, what happens is that you have very motivated people because of something. So, for example, what created the American society were they were highly motivated people. They were escaping religious persecution, and then they had kind of sensibilities of justice, and they felt that they weren't being treated right, and so they created this new society based on their basically their own needs and their sensibilities. But what if the British king, whoever it was, didn't persecute them? America would have never been created. What if the English kings didn't persecute the French? Well, they wouldn't have rebelled with the great cost and had democracy. What if the economy was better in Egypt? Well, they wouldn't have had an uprising. So, in other words, you have, and this is the critical point, you have three types of motivation. You have external motivation, and then you have two types of internal motivation. The external motivation obviously will motivate you through, God forbid, a fear, or it has to be some type of reward that is greater than your laziness. And the same thing works on the internal motivation. Let's say I'm hungry. I'm going to the fridge. I'm going to eat. Let's say a lot of people want to be rich. And there are thousands of books, and none of them really matter. Because as my great teacher, Rabbi Schneerson, says, you know what the quality of being rich is? It has nothing to do with brains. It's not this trick, that trick. It's that person is highly driven. And the same thing is with athletes. It's not the most athletic person that becomes the best athlete. It's the person who wants to win most. Because even though I'm no basketball player, but if I was highly motivated to be a basketball player more than anyone else, I would become the best basketball player. The desire in the mind can create, the mind is a genius. All of our minds are geniuses. My wife mentioned to me, I asked her about something, and she said, people are very smart. It's that they don't use their head. Why don't we use our head? Because we don't want to use our head. It's more comfortable to not use our head. You see, motivation is in a war with comfort. And so the bottom line is that in order to be highly motivated, one of the best things you can do if you're comfortable, if you're not comfortable, it's going to motivate you, is get yourself a coach. Because there's a certain element of shame. Shame is a very powerful motivation. And so if you have to come back to this guy every single week and you have to report back and you look like an idiot because you didn't get a task done, that is a very powerful, positive way to motivate yourself. That being said, I'm going to put a link to my book because what's most important is to know what's important